New moon, who this? The Sagittarius New Moon on December 19th, 2025 is a bold, fiery opportunity to plant seeds of adventure, expansion, growth, but most importantly of all, hope. Because this new moon squares Saturn. So while it lands in the very optimistic flames of Sagittarius, it's acknowledging the reality of the situation, which sometimes can be incredibly harsh, limiting, challenging. And sometimes reality can feel so crushing that it dims out our inner flame of optimism, of believing in a new dawn and believing in a new beginning. But your work this week, the magic that you're being asked to make this week, the spell that you're being asked to cast this week is to be bold enough and courageous enough to maintain hope, to do whatever possible that keeps that inner flame burning within in order to guide your pathway forward. This new moon squares Neptune, the planet of fantasy. And sometimes you have to delude yourself a little bit to believing things will get better. The best is right around the corner. And oftentimes that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, or at the very least, it could be just what is necessary in order to get you through the night. Even the longest, darkest night will eventually lead to a dawn, will lead to a sunrise, will lead to a new day. Will you believe it? And many of us around the globe are navigating a very long night, as we do have the solstice this Sunday. So if you are in the northern hemisphere, this marks the beginning of winter. And if you are in the southern hemisphere, this marks the beginning of summer. But regardless of which hemisphere you are tuning into your episode of Magic Monday in, what we all share in common is that solstices are a time of contrast. Equinoxes are a time of balance. The hours of daytime and nighttime are balanced. Solstices are extreme. So there tends to be a lot of contrast within our world. And if this is your winter solstice, there could be a lot of darkness. It's a long, dark night. Things could feel very cold. There could be a focus on your shadow and what potentially you are avoiding within said shadow. If you're listening in the southern hemisphere, there could be an illumination, certain arenas of your life that are coming to light. Some of what we are acknowledging this solstice, some of the contrast, the extremes that we are moving through may be a bit painful. Because on the same day as the solstice and the day that the sun ingresses into Capricorn, Jupiter, the ruler of this new moon, will square Chiron, which is the signature wince energy. Chiron energy is an ouch. It's a oof. You know, the best way that I could describe Chiron is via these sound effects, because it sears, it burns, it digs, it clings, it hurts, it wounds. Ouch. That's Chiron energy. And it's not necessarily new things that occur. It's events that transpire that may seem mundane on the surface, but dig at a story much deeper and cut into us. And with Chiron and Aries, potentially ways of even viewing ourselves, where it is that we have identified. And with Jupiter squaring Chiron, it may pull open some wounds for the purpose of growth, for the purpose of transmuting them into wisdom, for the purpose of bringing these sore spots within in order to nurture ourselves amidst it. But that does not make it hurt any less. This week, the Sun and Venus will square Saturn, which can be hitting a wall energy. It can be an ego punch with Sun squaring Saturn. It could be financial difficulties or love difficulties with Venus square Saturn, or not feeling very loved or not feeling very valued. But even amidst these challenging energies, there is a burst of hope, of optimism around accepting what is, while being courageous enough to dream of what could be, to maintain that flame no matter how dim it is, and intentionally stoke that fire of hope, of faith, of truth, of meaning as we wrap up Sagittarius season. So as always, we will break down this astrology each and every day, what you need to know with it, and true to Magic Monday style, how it is that you can co-create with the cosmos in order to navigate your reality with more alignment, with more flow. But before we get into our vibe check of the week and our day-by-day synopsis, take a step inside my cosmic cafe. Let me know what you are sipping on to move into this week. If you're somewhere cold, do you have a cup of hot tea, some cocoa? If you're somewhere warm, are you drinking something iced? I'm drinking peppermint tea with a little bit of honey, as my voice has been going through a lot of stress. I've been talking a lot Here on the channel, we're doing the 12 Days of Cosmos currently, which is my 2026 horoscopes. We are all the way at the time of this video being out into the world. We're all the way through Libra. Virgo goes live on the channel on Monday. Leo goes live on the channel on Wednesday. Cancer goes live on the channel on Friday. And then next Monday will be Gemini. Next Wednesday will be Taurus. Next Friday will be Aries. And the 12 Days of Cosmos is available on my YouTube channel, just in case you're listening via podcast. Just as a reminder, I would recommend listening to your rising sign. That will be the most accurate look at your 2026, and then also your sun sign for supplemental themes. And then in addition to that, every video, there's also a Magic 2026 offering, which is a 2 or 3 hour video. The time has been really ranging throughout the signs, but it's definitely longer than 2 hours. And it's a video where I take you through every single month of 2026 for your sign and the challenges, the opportunities of that month, as well as affirmations for you to navigate it. You do not need to listen to all 2 or 3 hours at once. I do have timestamps within that, so you can get dialed in on the months before they start. All of the Magic 2026 guides get released the day that the 12 Days of Cosmos All Sign Horoscope goes live on the channel. And I would just make a note of that if this is an offering that intrigues you, as within the 48 hours you can save. You can grab the early bird rate on your Magic 2026 guide. It's $22 within the first 48 hours, and then after we hit 48 hours, the price raises to $33. So just making a note, if your rising's not yet available the day that it does go live on the channel, in order to secure the best rate. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for your support of the series, as well as Magic Monday. I read each and every comment, and you all are really what motivate me to keep showing up. As I noted, it's been a lot of talking, it's been a lot of work, but genuinely just knowing that I'm able to illuminate some of your years or add a little bit of sparkle into your week if you tune into Magic Monday, like that truly means the entire world to me. And since we all love planets so much, it also means Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune to me, all of the planets. And I do have to be forthright that this week is not so much a Magic Monday, but more so like a Magic Midnight. I'm currently filming this at 12:50 a.m. So almost 1 a.m. my time, which is not typical for me. So that's why we do not have coffee today. We have peppermint tea. It's good for the throat. It's good for the hour of night. I want to highlight, I don't think I've ever filmed a Magic Monday at this time of night. I'm so curious, what time of day does Magic Monday typically give you? Like, does it seem like a morning show? Does it seem like afternoon show? What time of day do you typically listen to? I don't think anyone in the globe thinks of this show as a middle of the night show. I most certainly do not, but like I said, this is definitely interesting. I may be slightly loopy, but I suppose that works. We do have some Neptune energy this week, so we're just gonna flow with the loopy. And I want to highlight that I am here at 1 a.m. by my own volition, because I want to be here, because I have the energy to be here, because my voice still feels strong, coated by the honey. This is a month that I've been working more than ever to get these videos out and to pair them with the Magic 2026 supplemental guide and video. But it's felt so good to show up and to put my entire heart and soul into these offerings, because that is the expectation that I expect of myself. But I want to be so clear, I am not burnt out. Actually, quite the contrary. I feel very inspired. I feel very creatively fulfilled, creating so much content. It's actually felt really good. Yes, this sort of schedule that I've been rocking with as of late won't be sustainable long term, but it's really feeling good in the interim to really show up for you all, make you feel inspired and empowered around your year to come, and make you feel inspired and empowered around your week to come here on Magic Monday. And it's fascinating just reflecting back on past times that I've done this series. Since I've started 12 Days of Cosmos, I just know December is always such a busy month for me. And it's interesting just to think of past Decembers, past 12 Days of Cosmos, past times that I've done this, and just the differences in how I feel now. Like last year, I showed up, I did my videos, but I was editing them alone. I was really starting to unravel Like I was not working out. I was not really cleaning my home. I wasn't like eating properly in the way that I should have been eating. And the real flex for me this year is around, I'm creating content that I've gotten so much amazing feedback from you all on, but I'm creating content without burning myself out. I'm creating content while also eating 3 meals a day. I'm creating content while also having a somewhat normal sleep cycle, except for tonight. Okay. We're just going to have a pass for tonight. I'm really proud of creating content that I'm really proud of, and I'm still doing my workout classes. Like to me, that is the ultimate flex, because this is a time of year that I am more likely to quote unquote relapse into old patterns around being a workaholic and burning myself out in this effort to be perfect. And I can witness the temptation to slip into that pattern. But what's been really fascinating and gratifying this month is that I'm not slipping into it. I'm working harder than ever and more than ever, but I know that this is temporary. I'm taking care of myself as I do. And most importantly, I'm sharing the cosmic information with you all, which genuinely is such a motivating factor for me. So thank you so much. You know, it is what I am, but we will get through it. And I think there's part of this sentiment that I'm sharing with you here in the Cosmic Cafe that I just wanted to express, just because with these Saturn squares, things are hard. Things get busy. We feel restrictions and limitations. And sometimes it's helpful to just remind ourselves it won't always be as it is today. Like Sagittarius is that optimism around setting our arrow in the distance and going towards it, going towards a vision, going on a quest, and just knowing that there's so much within this experience beyond what we see at this particular moment. With the squares to Saturn, there can be some harsh circumstances, some tough deadlines, some moments of uncertainty, but it's just really important this week, particularly to generate and maintain a positive mindset. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into Vibe Check of the Week. So if you are new here, Vibe Check of the Week is our cosmic metaphor of the week, where we essentially take all of the astrological energies of this week and every week and compare it to a real life scenario. I am not suggesting that this exact situation will play out within your world, but if you tune into some of the major themes, you may see familiar dynamics, emotions, vibes surface within your week. It's essentially a way that we bring the stars down to planet Earth, because you and I can talk all day long around Jupiter squaring Chiron and the Sagittarius New Moon squaring Neptune, but Vibe Check of the Week seeks to answer the question, yeah, but what does that mean for me? So in this week's Vibe Check, we will say that you go to a family holiday party. And this is a family holiday party that you are not particularly looking forward to. Not because you're beefing with Aunt Marcia. Okay, we're going to give Aunt Marcia a pass this week. This holiday party is uncomfortable because it is the first holiday party that you've gone to since you've been divorced. I'm not implying that everybody's going to get a divorce this year. We will say that after a really long process and a lot of heartache that's still somewhat ongoing, the divorce is finalized, and this is the first party that you are going to around being a divorcee and having this new identity of not being in this marriage anymore, which you know is for the best. Like, you know why you left. You know why you had to go and seek greener pastures. Like, you know why it is that you had to depart the familiarity of the comfort zone in order to go find a life that truly felt like your own. You know why you had to do that, but it doesn't make it not hurt when family members are asking, oh, where's blank, if they weren't filled in, or individuals who know about it clearly because the aunts gossip with one another, but don't want to outright ask it. So they kind of beat around the bush or around, oh yeah, what are you doing with this? And what are you doing with this? And you just wish they would just come out and ask you about the divorce or about why you left or whatever else they're wondering about and trying to get to. It's uncomfortable to be seen in this way, and there is a little bit of shame over it. You know it's for the best, but there still is an energy around feeling like a failure, feeling like you are letting people down, feeling like a black sheep for the parts of your family who are very religious and think of divorce as a horrible sin. You know that it's what's best for you, but there is an energy debuting yourself within this truth that makes you feel uncomfortable and shame and even question if this was the right decision for you, which you snapped yourself out of real quick. Sometimes you got to snap yourself out of it. We do get pulled into other people's energy sometimes. And we'll say at this holiday party, you kind of get pulled into this conversation where other people are talking about their significant others. And you're like, oh, it is nice to have a significant other. And gosh, I do miss being married. But then you have to be like, snap out of it. Wake up. Neptune is direct. Snap out of this illusion. You know why this had to be the case. You got to keep moving forward. There is a nudge this week to keep moving forward. Mercury clears its post-retrograde shadow on Wednesday, December 17th. This means there is forward momentum within the cosmos, my loves. We are moving into new seasons of our life, new territories of our life, new projects, but there is a lure from the past, with Jupiter in Cancer squaring Chiron. And not just the past, but the wounds of the past, where, yes, this is the first holiday party that you've been divorced, but the sort of shame and guilt is something that's familiar. It's been alive in other family gatherings and other situations within your life, and it just hurts you deeper around, just another time that I feel like I'm letting my family down, or just another time that I feel like a failure, just another time that I feel like a sinner. Whatever it is, it's like the ouch, it's that wince, it's that oof. And sometimes that's activated in unexpected ways. Our cousin just asked what we were doing for New Year's Eve, and it's like you felt a wave of emotion about this relationship all over again, just contemplating, oh my gosh, it's the first New Year's Eve without this person. It's like you are healing, you are moving through it, but as we know, healing is not linear. And sometimes there's just an unexpected pocket of hurt that demands to be felt, and sometimes gets triggered in very ordinary questions, like, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? And there's an ask to really nurture ourselves and be very gentle if there are random flare-ups of triggers and hurts and pain this week with Jupiter squaring Chiron. And to also know that nobody expected you to have all the answers. I know that we tend to feel that way, like we should know all the answers, and letting your family know that you are not in this marriage any longer and feeling the shame of that around, I made a mistake, or I didn't know myself entering this relationship, or I didn't fully know what I was stepping into. There's parts of that you have shame for, but it's like, who expected you to be perfect? And also with Sagittarius energy, it's very much around the journey. It's around the adventure, and life is a journey. There are so many more chapters in your book. There's so many more adventures for you to go on. And sometimes we're so scared to go out and find those adventures, to go off on that quest, that we would rather stay in the comfort zone of familiarity. And it's natural, even if you're on this quest, you're on this journey, it's natural to have moments when you hit hardships and challenges, as represented by these Saturn squares, around doubting yourself. Do I know the way? Where's my guiding star? Where do I go from here? That's natural. But the ask is to not turn around. The ask is to not allow this party to kick up so much insecurity and self-doubt within yourself that you return back to something that you know is not good for you. The ask is to have the courage to continue to pursue what is true and meaningful for you, to continue to pursue your new horizon, your new dawn, your new day. And so we will dive deeper into this vibe check as we take it into our day-by-day synopsis. I just do want to let you know that I'm located in California, so all times that I mention are PST. Please adjust to your local time zone if you are located elsewhere. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into the astrology for Monday, December 15th. On Monday, December 15th, today is about shedding. Today is about releasing. Today is about letting go. We do not earn the wings unless we sacrifice the cocoon. And so there can be elements of that alive within your world. This is the waning crescent moon as we prepare for this Friday's new moon. And the final lunar phase in the lunar cycle is about closing out, clearing out. Sometimes we feel a little bit more introspective, drained, depleted before new moons, naturally feeling inclined to come inward in order to preserve and protect our energy. Sometimes naturally, energetically, we feel inspired to release clutter, delete photos on our phone, to naturally clear up space for this new beginning, as represented by the new moon. Sometimes a flurry of emotions come to the surface for them to be felt and released in preparation of this new beginning. it's important to remember that astrology is energetic. Astrology is vibrational. These cycles we feel. This just gives language to understanding it. And the more that you pay attention to waning crescent moons, the more you may find that naturally around this time in the lunar cycle, you do feel more inspired to release things, to let go things. Like intuitively, you could just find yourself wanting to clear out the clutter. Naturally, you could just find yourself coming inward a little bit more. Naturally, you could find yourself deleting photos and completing the incomplete in energetic preparation for what your soul knows is a new beginning. So there's an ask on Monday to allow that process of the shedding, of the releasing, of the letting go. The moon is in Scorpio all day long, squaring Pluto just after midnight, which Pluto is around death and rebirth. It's around transmuting and transformation. And so some emotions that could surface today may be intense. And it's knowing that it can be transmuted. It can be transformed. Pluto is the real archetype when we talk about transmutation, but Chiron gets an honorary mention. From my perspective anyway. And that's important this week. Jupiter squares Chiron this Sunday, but we're going to feel this build as Jupiter and Chiron are two more slower moving celestial bodies. And Chiron is also a bit of an alchemist in and of itself, because it's not just about the pain. It's not just about the wound. The story does not stop there when we talk about Chiron within mythology. It's about what that wound was transmuted into. It's about the decision to turn our pain into power. It's about the decision to not close ourselves off in response to pain, as tempting as it can be. Just give up on the world and be jaded and disillusioned because we have been hurt so badly or betrayed so badly with the Scorpio moon squaring Pluto. It's a bold and courageous act to remain compassionate, to look for ways to ease the suffering of others or to make a difference in other people's lives. Because if you're familiar with the mythology of Chiron, Chiron was abandoned. And that's a sort of wound that burrows into our being so deeply. And Chiron had every right to just want to give up on humanity, but instead, Chiron took the pain of feeling ostracized and betrayed and different than others and went on a journey, became a healer, became a mentor, became an astrologer. I like to think of it as earned empathy, because it's not the sort of knowledge that you can get from books. It's a sort of a knowledge around, I've been there, and here are the healing modalities that help me that I'm able to share to you. Or here is my why that I'm so devoted to because I don't want anyone on this planet to feel the pain that I have felt. Chiron energy burrows into the deepest crevices of our being, and it really asks us what it is that we do with our pain. That's really an inevitability of this experience. And I'm not saying you have to say, yippee, this week with Jupiter squared Chiron, that it's like, yay, I'm so glad I went through this because now I have all this wisdom to share. I'm not saying you have to artificially get to that point. But I do think that for me, I have found a lot of peace with my pain when I found what it supported me with. There's been so many experiences for me where I went through something painful, and the moment that I found that I was able to turn it into a story on Magic Monday, or it was able to support me in having enhanced empathy with a client, or if I was able to share a tip to a friend because I genuinely went through something similar, like I genuinely was where they are 2 years ago. Like, to me, when I can find some sort of good out of a bad, ugly situation, if I can find some sort of wisdom, to me, it makes me feel less bound to the pain, or at least understanding the wisdom that was given to me through it, which sucks sometimes. And so just knowing that Chiron spirit is up this week. So you could just find, whether it's Monday, whether it's another time this week, that there's an energy around having a conversation with someone and you're able to share advice from a very genuine place. You might feel the ouch around, ooh, that sucked when I went through it, or sharing this advice is reminding me what it felt like to be within this space, or writing about it is bringing up that energy within me. Like with Chiron energy, the pain does not fully subside. And there is an ask this week to allow the wince while also knowing that you're safe. You are not there anymore. And there could be opportunities to share wisdom, to share experiences because of that. And that helps us transmute the energy to bring it back to the Scorpio moon trining Pluto on today, Monday, December 15th. It's around emotional transmutation where we can take things that were so hard to go through, different deaths and rebirths that we have navigated, and be able to turn it into something else, whether it's wisdom for someone else, whether it's a story, whether it's sometimes just a great workout, or just putting that energy into our work projects. You know, now we have Mars and Capricorn. That was a shift late last night. Make sure to catch up on last week's episode of Magic Monday to get dialed into that. But however it is that you feel called today to alchemize the emotions, to transmute the emotions, to even peer into the depth of your own emotions, you're encouraged to do that. Because like I said, we are approaching solstice, which can be a time of confronting darkness, confronting our shadow self, or confronting extremes within our lives. And with the Scorpio moon energy, the Pluto square, and just us being in the waning crescent, there is an energy where certain emotions could be coming up because they're not coming with you, you know, on this journey that we're setting off on with this Sagittarius new moon. We can't take it all with us. So there can be an energy around something that you are holding that may have served you up to this point, but it's time to let it go. You know, we only have a set amount of room in our little knapsack. And so there can be an energy around, you know, it's time to let this go. And it might really show up an emotional level around, I'm ready to let go of this resentment. I'm ready to let go of this anger, whatever it is. We can't take it all with us. We can't fly our wings and keep the cocoon. That's just not how it works. On Tuesday, December 16th, today at 8:34 p.m., the Sagittarius sun will square Saturn in Pisces, which is also woven into this Friday's new moon. And this aspect is like leaping up to slam dunk a basketball and missing, and falling on your knees in front of your friends. This aspect is like being at a dinner party and realizing that your fly was down the entire time. This aspect is like raising your hand to announce an answer to your professor's question and getting it wrong, and everybody in the class looks at you. This aspect is essentially giving a little bit of embarrassment, potentially like an ego check, and feeling a bit humbled by the universe. You know, sometimes we get on our high horse. Sometimes we think that we are the, you know what, and life just has a funny way of humbling us. And with the energy of Sun squaring Saturn, some of you could experience this as feeling a bit hopeless. You know, Sun is vitality, so you could just feel not as in touch with your joy. Things could feel a little hopeless this week, or challenging, or there's certain obstacles. You may feel like you are being seen less than favorably, whether it's an embarrassing moment, whether it's harsh criticism, harsh feedback. There could even be an energy around feeling not recognized, feeling not seen, and not feeling very creative. Again, Sun is how we glow and shine and illuminate. And with the square to Saturn, it could just feel like your glow is being suffocated by responsibilities and to-dos and constraints. And it could just make you feel very blah. This is like really an energy around feeling blah. For some of you, there can be an energy, especially with Venus squaring Saturn this week, around having a little bit of winter uglies, which not all of us are in winter currently, but if it's cold where it is that you are, you know what winter uglies are. There just tends to be an energy, and again, I'm a baby, I live in San Diego, so our winter is not wintering like it is for a lot of you, but there is just something when it's cold outside that you just don't want to get ready as much a lot of times. Your lips feel more chapped, like sometimes you're just not feeling your best. And Sun square Saturn could just be feeling that, just kind of feeling like in your flop era. And it's really important to know that however it is that you're feeling this Sun square Saturn energy, it's just knowing that when you feel something that the cosmos is reflecting, it's knowing that it's reflecting a current sky. And that indicates this energy will pass. It's a flop era. It's not a flop life. It's a moment of embarrassment. It's not a lifetime of embarrassment. I promise everybody is just thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about your fly being down or you missing that slam dunk or whatever it may be. Nobody is thinking about it the way that you are. But we all, of course, are the suns of our solar system. We think a lot around how we are perceived. And this is the energy within the vibe check around thinking about how you're being perceived by everybody at this family party around, gosh, now I'm divorced. What does everybody think of me? And being very hard on yourself about that around, oh, does everybody think I'm just like this irresponsible family member because I chose to depart a relationship that was not for me? There's also an energy this week around potentially feeling confused around identity. There's an energy around feeling a little bit lost this week. And it's important to just kind of let it be. Like, let yourself be lost. You will find your way in due time. The invitation is to not go back to the last time in which your ego felt very solid in its identity, because soul growth sometimes will take us to uncharted territories and unfamiliar roads and unusual parts of the quest. Like, that's what our soul is here to do. Our ego really likes the safety of having certain identities around, I work in this career and I am in this relationship and I very much identify with that. And that's such a beautiful thing. If you're in a career, if you're married, whatever it is that we're going, like, it's not saying we can't have pride in what we identify with, but the challenge can be, like it is for our protagonist, when that identity is stripped away. And if we feel like less than, if we've woven our identity around, I'm this person's partner, I work at this particular job, and just feeling the shame in that you are internalizing and feeling less than within your own self. It's knowing that maybe are some of the cousins thinking some thoughts, some of the aunts saying this and that, whatever, sure. But most of the time, people are not thinking about us as much as we are thinking about ourselves. And you know, with Sun squaring Saturn, it can be very self-deprecating. It can be very hard on yourself. You could be working on a creative project and look at it and be like, this is a piece of crap. Like, this is not good. This is not going to resonate with people. This is not going to move people. Something like this could be coming up. And you may feel tempted to share that out with other individuals. Like, almost want to make the joke before they make the joke around being at this party and being like, yeah, I'm divorced, I know, like, loser, failure, degenerate, whatever it is that you're thinking, which very well may not be the thoughts within their mind. But with Sun squaring Saturn, we could be really looking at ourselves and our identity in a negative light and thinking other people feel the same, which everybody's just so busy thinking about themselves. They're not putting as much time towards you as you may think. And it's also just being mindful of the story that you cast yourself in, or your own hero's journey and your role as the hero within it, where sometimes we are very self-deprecating, where we make jokes about our job around, oh, it's so easy, you know, anyone could do it. Or we say the thing that we think everybody is thinking around our marriage that we left and how it reflects on us as a person. It's being very mindful around the story that you weave around your own self-concept and how you invite people into that story, where sometimes out of humility or out of wanting to be more modest, which is not necessarily a bad thing, we will talk down about ourselves. We'll be self-deprecating. We'll say it's not a big deal, or we'll say, yeah, I'm such a loser. Like, we'll say those sort of things, and then we invite people to view us in that lens. I'm not saying you have to go to the family party and start bragging to everybody about this and that, but I am saying it's very important, the light that you cast yourself within and the role you cast yourself within as the hero of your hero's journey. Like, you can either say, yeah, I'm such a loser and degenerate, or you could just position yourself around, I made a decision. It didn't work out. Life goes on. I'm excited about this trip I'm going on next week. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about that. It's really being intentional what you define yourself with. And it's not feeling bad about yourself if there have been some detours in the journey. You know, life's a journey with the Sagittarius energy. No one is expecting you to be perfect, and we can expect that from ourselves. So it's just being very mindful how it is that you view yourself and how you invite other people to view you in that particular light. And it's knowing that you did not come here to be perfect. You did not come here to always stay on the linear path, even when something was not serving you. You did not come here to not make mistakes and have detours. And with Sun square Saturn, it's just choosing not to weave failure too tightly into your identity, how it is that you see yourself, and how then you invite others to see you and view you. And just know, if you're feeling blah, if you're feeling meh, if you're not about it today, a new day will come. If you create a piece of art that you're not thrilled about, you can always film it again. You could always try it again. And if it's not our ego being bruised or our vitality feeling limited, I also want to bring forward that with Saturn and Pisces squaring Sagittarius sun, it could be a crisis of faith or not having hope, not having belief in yourself or that things are going to get better. And I'm here to tell you things are going to get better. This too shall pass. And the moon is in Scorpio all day long, trining Jupiter in Cancer around 7 p.m. and then trining Saturn in Pisces at around 11:30 p.m. So nice little water grand trine in the evening time, ideal for a bath, ideal for getting in the sauna, ideal for writing and journaling and romanticizing your life and romanticizing even the deep emotions. You know, turning it into poetry, turning it into a collage, turning it into something. With the Scorpio moon energy and that Chiron energy building. On Wednesday, December 17th, I want to let you know firstly that Mercury clears the post-retrograde shadow today. So by all means, my friends, sign the contracts, buy the electronics. You have the Comet cosign. Maybe exercise a little bit of caution. You know, Mercury may be moving into new territory, but it is still in its detriment. You know, it's not exactly thriving in Sagittarius. But if there is something that you need to sign or something that you need to handle before year end, knowing that Mercury is supporting you, moving into new territory. And so there is a nudge for you to do the same. You know, this was why within the vibe check, it's an energy where it's like, I'm not there anymore. And yes, you have all sorts of firsts when you are navigating any sort of grief or loss. And a lot of those firsts are heartbreaking. You know, the first holiday season without someone there, or the first birthday without someone there. Like every single first that you experience can burn in its own unique way. And it's being incredibly gentle with yourself during that process. That's really my encouragement this week, is to really hold space, even if it's things that happened years ago. Like just things could come up this week that you're like, why is this bubbling up now? Like, why am I emotional about this now? Truly, healing is not linear, and it's important to really have grace with yourself as you navigate and to know that you don't live there anymore. You know, sometimes things come up from our past, but it's important to know I'm not there anymore. Like, I am moving forward. Mercury is moving into new territory of the sky, and so am I. And so onward we go. New projects, new conversations, new events. Onward we go. You know, I'm thinking mentally to this TikTok that I saw, and it was talking about healed Aries and what happens when you're talking to a healed Aries. And one person was essentially saying, I got let go from my job. They did me so dirty. And the healed Aries is like, okay, what are we going to do about it? Like moving forward. You know, this kind of a fire sign energy of that as we close out this fire sign energy, where it's not to say that things have not transpired and there has not been pain and wounding, but it's just baseless energy where it's mentally more focused around how is it that I want to move forward? What am I excited about creating? What topics am I interested in digging into? Sometimes connecting with our future version of self can help us pull us out of those moments of feeling lost. Because it's very natural in those moments of feeling lost to return back to the last moment in which we felt somewhat found, where it's like, yes, maybe I was in this unhappy, hollow marriage or in this situation that I knew was not for me. I felt like my life was a movie that I was miscast in. Like there were elements where it's like, this doesn't feel entirely right, but maybe societally I was doing the right thing, or maybe there was a certain comfort in that. And so we could want to regress back to places that were really not the best because at least it was familiar. We felt somewhat found. And the invitation is instead to connect to who it is that you are on the other side of this, which is scary work. To wander out in the darkness and to trust that you will meet the evolved version of yourself, but it's knowing that person exists. And so it's thinking like that person, reading books like that person, or just even tuning into anything that pulls you towards that future version of self. I want to highlight the moon is in Scorpio for the first part of the day. It opposes Uranus at 5:25 a.m. So some of you may have some surprising wake-up calls or something unexpected could transpire. The Scorpio moon trines Neptune, which is dreamy, idealistic, maybe an opportunity to romanticize your cold December morning. Or your warm December morning, depending on where you are. The moon enters Sagittarius at 8:38 a.m., then going on to sextile Pluto at 1:19 p.m. PST, which is resilience, bouncing back. You know, yesterday we took a L of Sun squaring Saturn, and today we bounce back. And that's just life, is the good and the bad and the up and the down and the flop and the slay. And it just all is what it is. And there almost is an energy of acceptance of that this week, where it's like, you know, it's a little bit of a awkward holiday party, but I've accepted the divorce. I've accepted what people are going to say, but time continues on. You know, what feels searing and embarrassing now will be something that nobody thinks about in time. So it's just believing in new beginnings is the ask. And I do want to highlight the moon aligns with Mercury very early on Thursday morning. And Mercury may be out of the shadows, but it's not quite out of the woods, so to speak, in terms of potentially being blunt to our own detriment, or very mouthy, or very outspoken about our opinion. You know, with moon on Mercury, we could really want to vocalize what we think is right or wrong, or other people could be vocalizing that to us as well. And it's very important to pursue our own truth, pursue our own meaning and philosophy, but it's also important not to push that onto other people, as well as to let other people's perceptions of what they deem right and wrong, or what they deem as moral and immoral, to soak into your way of viewing yourself and your own personal truth, just with Saturn separating from its square to the Sagittarius sun. On Thursday, December 18th, Venus in Sagittarius will trine Chiron in Aries. We are bruised but healing is the energy here. Around, we may be navigating heartache or heartbreak, but it's just knowing that if we are feeling it, we are healing it. And it doesn't always feel that way. Especially if we have random flashbacks or flare-ups of something where it's like, I should be over this. Like, why am I still in this? Why does this still come up every so often? You know, the heart takes the amount of time that the heart takes when it relates to processing anything hard. And Chiron Aries so deeply wants to rush by the healing, but it just has to allow your healing to be something that is tender, and to really wrap yourself in a lot of tenderness as you process and as you heal. And something can be the right decision and still feel painful. And that can coincide, absolutely. Sometimes we're so scared to feel the pain that we don't do the right thing, or we feel the pain and then we go back to the wrong thing in order to avoid the pain or numb the pain or escape the pain. Something can be the right thing for you and still bring a little bit of heartache, or bring a little bit of grief, or bring a little bit of loss, or bring a little bit of a bittersweet energy. This is a harmonious flow of energy, but Chiron ultimately, even by positive aspect, is a little bit of a bittersweet acknowledgement around, it's my first New Year's Eve being divorced. Like, ugh, like, what am I going to do? Like, who am I going to kiss at midnight? But also feeling just the slightest glimmer of hope or excitement around, who am I going to kiss at midnight? We contain multitudes as human beings. We can hold many different things. Something could be right and feel painful sometimes. Something could be scary and also exciting. Something could be sad and also freeing. Like, we contain multitudes, and our heart does as well. And Venus is building to square Saturn. So themes around love and money and pleasure and beauty right now could feel hard. You can be experiencing some restriction around these themes. And sometimes that's a blow for our ego. You know, it's Sun having squared Saturn 2 days prior. You know, sometimes we are heartbroken because we really love the person. And sometimes we are heartbroken because our ego is bruised around, how dare you not want me? And sometimes if we just get into that space around, you know, they didn't, and that's okay. And sometimes we just get to a place where it's like, it's okay. Because our ego will want to prove our worth and our value to someone, especially if we feel rejected. You know, with Venus square Saturn, we could be sensing or perceiving rejection in some sort of way. And if we do, our ego will want to secure that validation, secure that adoration, view ourselves through this person's lens around, I am only beautiful and valuable if I'm beautiful and valuable to you. It's really important to check who it is that you're giving the power to define you or to see you. Whose lens are you viewing yourself through? And is it someone from your past? And can you reclaim your own definition of yourself, especially if being entangled with someone who perpetually left you feeling discarded, rejected, not good enough, like you had to try harder, like you had to do more. No one on this planet has the power to deem whether you are worthy or not worthy. Nobody has the power to do anything like that. So for some, there could be an energy of reclamation in that, around with Venus trine Chiron, around, my heart still hurts for this person and what I went through, but I also acknowledge it's okay and I will get better and I will love again. Or you could feel a certain sting around not feeling very beautiful or valuable or abundant at this particular moment in time, but it's knowing the truth that you are so much bigger than this particular moment in time. And that your being is so much more valuable than any number in your bank account. And that your soul is so much more beautiful than your physical vessel could ever be. It's just acknowledging that and coming back to that spiritual truth, even if there's a sting, which it does feel like there is this week. And the Sagittarius moon aligns with Mercury at 2:02 a.m. PST, which also gives an energy around seeking knowledge, seeking information, with Venus in Sagittarius trining Chiron in Aries, potentially around your healing, or just even wanting to go on certain adventures or learn certain things or have certain conversations that help with healing or self-discovery, or potentially going into books or topics that sometimes bring up some more tender feelings or experiences, but also feeling the wisdom within it. On Friday, December 19th, at 5:43 p.m. PST, we have the new moon in Sagittarius, which is an opportunity to call in new horizons, new adventures, new experiences that make you feel more connected to your own personal truth, which is subject to shift and change. Sagittarius is a mutable sign after all. Sometimes we go on trips that change our life. Sometimes we dive into studies that change our perception of this world altogether. It's knowing that our truth is not something that is static, but is something that is evolving. And it's giving ourselves permission to be on the journey and to not judge ourselves if we're not at the destination. This new moon squares Saturn, squares Neptune, and aligns widely with Venus, which essentially means this new moon is around having faith, even in the hardships, with its square to Saturn. And it's also a reminder to be a bit delusional with the square to Neptune. Even if our physical reality is not matching up with it quite yet, allowing ourselves to be delusional. Sometimes being a bit delusional around everything's going to work out for me and this is the direction that my journey is going. Sometimes that is just what is necessary in order to get through a long, cold, dark night, or to get through a dark night of the soul. Like sometimes that is just the reassurance that we need to keep going. And sometimes you find yourself living in a reality that you used to dream of. With the squares to Saturn, there can be a lot within your 3D physical reality that feels very binding and very opposite of what it is that you're calling in or manifesting. It's kind of the energy when you're like manifesting money and then you get an alert that some bank activity happened in your account, and then you check and it just so happened that HBO was taking their $13 or whatever. And you're like, really, universe, I asked for money to give to me. I did not ask for more money to be taken out of my account. Like sometimes we experience a mismatch between what it is that we're desiring or what it is that we're manifesting and calling in and our physical environment and our physical reality. But what's important is how we show up within those moments. Around just even reminding yourself this moment is not permanent. Saturn energy can be so harsh. It could be such a reality check energy that it can make us feel like all that exists is this particular moment. You are defined by the number in your bank account. You are defined by your current relationship status. But the square to Neptune is coming back to the reality that you are so much more than this reality. Truly. And you never know. Sometimes your delulus become trululu. Like truly, they do. And it's wild. You may find yourself living in a dream version of your life. And sometimes dreams can be sustenance for ourselves to keep going, to keep showing up. But sometimes our dreams come into fruition. You're living in something that you didn't even think could be possible. It was just something that you used to daydream about in order to check out from your reality, in order to cope with what was very hard, with feelings of despair. This new moon is around holding on to hope even amidst trying times, and knowing that this is a laudable act. This is a powerful act, especially in times such as these. And it's holding on to your hope for yourself, and it's holding on to hope for humanity as well. I believe optimism is necessary in terms of what we're stepping into, not ignoring and denying what is transpiring, but more so believing in the potential to create a more beautiful world. What's the point of being here if we don't believe that that's possible, to create a more beautiful world? And even if that's not the objective reality of the situation, if you're like Haley Comet, there's no possible way, humanity is doomed, it's important to ask yourself, what is going to be the most beneficial as it relates to my worldview? Because the Sagittarius New Moon does bring up themes of your worldview, of your big picture. What ultimately is going to be the most supportive? What is going to help me to show up for humanity, being more generous? What is going to support me in experiencing what I really want to experience during my time here on planet Earth? What's going to support me in just getting out of bed and keeping going? It's probably not going to be very supportive to feel like humanity is doomed. It'll be very nihilistic. What's the point? With the square to Neptune, where is it that we can delude ourselves in helpful ways that allows us to keep showing up? Not la 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 la, checking out in our own reality, but more so around taking on the worldview around everything is going to get better, and I'm going to look for opportunities where I can do my part in order to make this world a more beautiful place, in order to experience more magic and alignment. It's like deluding yourself in that way. Illusion that helps you launch forward, even if your physical reality at this particular moment feels harsh and cruel and challenging with the square to Saturn. It's dreaming, it's envisioning. And I would really encourage you to dream big. And it's knowing that sometimes the harshest or most limiting circumstances can be the perfect breeding grounds for new visions, new creativity, new ways of navigating this world. This new moon aligns with Venus, which does bring up romance themes and money themes, both of which you might be feeling a little discouraged about right now with the square to Saturn currently transpiring. And Saturn energy can bring up a lot of contrast. The solstice this weekend can bring up a lot of contrast. And what I mean by contrast is even a contrast around, I want this in love, but instead I'm experiencing this. Like contrast around, I feel so far from what it is that I desire. I feel so far from what it is that I want. This is not what I want. This is not what I desire. But it's knowing that contrast can bring clarity, that we have to figure out what it is that we don't want in order to tune into what we do want. So the Sagittarius New Moon could also be illuminating that. My encouragement, if you feel inspired to work with this new moon, it aligns at 5:43 and then the window is open all weekend long. So knowing that there's helpful energy to plant seeds. With Sagittarius, themes that may be supportive is getting out in nature, doing something that makes you feel free, going to a church or another sacred site that just makes you feel connected to your something more, to the bigger picture, despite how challenging, limiting, or harsh your current circumstances are. It's coming back to soul. Because when it comes to soul, when it comes to spirit, it's boundless. It is not subject to the limitations of this physical experience. And so outside of the new moon, just in terms of practically spending the day, I want to highlight new moons are a time of creation. The moon is vacant from the sky, or at least it looks that way. And so there's an energy around blank slate. What is it that we want to create? Sometimes when we are working that job that we are not super thrilled about, that creates the space where we start daydreaming about what it is that we would want to do in our ideal day. And you never know. Sometimes those daydreams become reality. And this is sort of new moon where we could just manifest from that space of our daydreams. And it's just knowing if you are at a job that you are not thrilled with, if you're in a season of life that you are not thrilled with, it's knowing that these harsh circumstances can be creating just the contrast necessary in order to tune into what it is that you really desire, the direction that you really want to go in. And it also can be creating the foundation for you to dream new things and call upon new visions. And so as you navigate your day to day, sometimes before a new moon, we feel a little bit more drained, as I said, a little bit more inward. The moon does square Saturn at like noon. So there can be certain things that kind of dim your spirit a bit. Luckily, of course, the moon's in Sagittarius, so there should be an energy around picking yourself up again, around someone might have ruined your vibe, but then you just dust yourself back up and find your wavelength again. The moon squares Neptune at 7:41 p.m. Keep in mind, this is all woven into the new moon, but I just want to say on a practical level, definitely be mindful of overdoing it. Definitely important to practice temperance. And the moon will enter Capricorn shortly before 9 p.m., which is grounded, which is steady, which is around, yes, setting our arrow in the distance, but now exerting our willpower in order to follow that direction. On Saturday, December 20th, we have 2 squares today. And if you're familiar with astrology, squares are not always the most pleasant. Squares fundamentally signal tension, conflict. And so the first is that Sun will square Neptune, and Neptune blurs bounds, which again can be helpful. Like when we were talking about the new moon, sometimes it helps to blur the bounds of who we are, because that's what helps us be in creator mode around who we could be. Like within that space where we're physically at work, but we are visualizing ourselves as a famous painter or what have you, being in that space, having a more loose understanding of who it is that we are allows us to dream new dreams and envision new visions. And it can be helpful to have a little wiggle room in terms of how it is that we view ourselves in order to step into new expansive sides of ourselves. But this can also be an energy that's very confusing. You know, who am I? What am I doing? Like feeling very lost. There's shades in the vibe check around as you're talking to different family members, just feeling this energy around who am I? You know, I'm not in this relationship. Like, what am I doing? You know, there's something about being at gatherings and parties that just really makes you reflect on very particular parts of your life. Because oftentimes when you get together with others, you know, we talk about what we do for career, we talk about our relationship, we talk about certain life decisions. And sometimes if there's confusion around that, you're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I right? And your work here is to live a life that is true for you. And it can be hard with Sun square Neptune because you can feel very pulled into who other people think that you should be or what other people are doing. You could talk to some people at the family party who have children and wonder, should I be having children right now? Talking to people at the family party who are married and wonder, should I be married right now? Talking to people at the family party who are in grad school, talking to people at the family party who are traveling the world. You know, that's what I find is very overwhelming about being a Pisces, is that genuinely I see so much of myself in other people. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I just mean when I hear other people talk, when I hear their stories, when I hear their experiences, no matter how different we are as human beings, it's like, I get it. I feel you. I see you so deeply. And when I get pulled into other people's orbits, I could see how fulfilling it would be to raise a family. I could see how wonderful it would be to be in a marriage. I can feel how incredible it would be to travel the world. Like I get pulled into how all of these other people live their lives, and I see parts of myself within, and I question, I wonder what's right for me. Like, what is truly me? Because I see shades of me in all of these things, but I have to make decisions as this being that I am. And the ask here is to just really get to know yourself while also know that you have not met all of you yet. You have not written all of your book yet. There are still chapters that you are writing. You have not had all of the experiences that you will have yet. So how is it that we can dance within this gray area around being solid in our truth for what we know so far, while also remaining open and flexible for new sides of ourselves that we have yet to connect into? And to stay very anchored in ourselves, to not get pulled in at this family party. You know, just witness that if that happens. It may not be a family holiday party for you, but in other arenas of life, just really witness where you get pulled into somebody else's orbit and world. Again, sometimes it can be wonderful to get on somebody else's wavelength and to see the world through their eyes, but you got to come back to self. You got to come back to what's right for you. You cannot build a world that is for other people. You cannot be defined by other people's truth. You have to come back to self. And it's also just knowing with Sun square Neptune, we could be feeling a little lost in the sauce, a little existential, a little what's the point? And with this energy, we can feel a little one with the fabric of humanity. It's really the energy of Sun square Neptune. You know, it's a bit of a ego death. If Sun square Saturn earlier this week was a ego humbling, this is an ego death, and not in like a Pluto death and rebirth way, but Neptune is around recognizing, wow, I'm just a speck in the fabric of humanity. Like, who am I? And sometimes that can be freeing, sometimes that could be scary, but there's just an energy to flow with the truths that you know about self and the truths that have yet to be discovered today. Not mind the overdoing energy with the square to Neptune, especially if the temptation to overdo is coming from a more wounded place with Jupiter squaring Chiron happening tomorrow. The other square we're experiencing today is that Venus in Sagittarius will square Saturn in Pisces. This lands at 9:09 p.m. And as we've connected on, this can represent hardship around finances. Like there could just be an energy where it's like, oop, my next paycheck doesn't hit for a week and a half. Like I've got a budget, I've got to save. I want to feel free and experience and ice skate and do all of the things with the Venus and Sagittarius, but I don't have the resources available at this particular moment. I have to be prudent. I have to save. I have to budget. There can be an energy around feeling like you've hit a bit of a wall there. Also within love, you could feel a little rejected. With beauty, you could feel like you have the winter uglies. Like we could just be feeling not as beautiful, not as valuable, not as worthy, not as loved, not as abundant. Like Venus is what in life is sweet and Saturn is what in life is blocked. So you could feel blocked from the sweetness of life. Also, Saturn was squaring Sun earlier this week. So like the vitality of life, you could feel disconnected with those themes. But it's knowing that this energy will lighten. Like there will be a day that you wake up and the sunlight is coming through the curtains. Ooh, those are my favorite mornings to wake up to when I already see the sunlight filtering in. There'll be a day that you're driving and a song that you forgot about from the 90s comes on and you feel so moved that you can't help but to sing along. There'll be a day that you make the most beautiful banana bread that you are so proud of. Like life really shows up in these sweet moments, and we may feel temporarily disconnected from the sweet moments, the beauty in life, the art in life at this particular moment, but it's knowing this is just a particular moment. And with Sun square Neptune, I'm part of something so much bigger. And where is it that I can step out of this experience? Because humaning is hard. Navigating this matrix is a lot. It's a lot. And there's a lot of really harsh truths about this experience, and being a human with these physical bodies and navigating this world with these corporations, it can be soul numbing, if not soul deadening sometimes. And it's important to do the things that return you back to the bigger picture, to give yourself that soul food around, I am not defined by my physical reality. I am part of something that's so much bigger than myself. That is fuel in what can very much be a very harsh world sometimes. And even though we could be feeling a little lost in the sauce with Sun squaring Neptune, even though we could be feeling a little not lovable and not beautiful, with the moon in Capricorn all day long, it is around ambition, discipline. The moon aligns with Mars in the morning time. So great day for a workout, for a hike, get outdoors, especially with that Sun square Neptune. Connect to something that's bigger than yourself. Go to a sacred site, move your physical body, challenge your body. Something about moving your body just reminds you that you're alive and it's more than the bills, right? Like there could be something like that, or getting lost in a certain project, like doing some sort of hard project that challenges you a little bit could be helpful today. You may feel a little testy with moon on Mars, a little reactive, a little feisty, a little angry. You know, Capricorn moon is typically pretty good at compartmentalizing emotions in order to try to make sense to them. But you could just find with moon on Mars, you're more inclined to react on your emotions. On Sunday, December 21st, around 2 a.m., Jupiter in Cancer will square Chiron in Aries, which is the ouch. It is the trigger. It is the wince. It is the wound. It is the inadequacy. It is the insecurity. It is the pain of the past. And I do mean that because Jupiter is in Cancer. This is the sign of the past. So you could find that old wounds are surfacing, asking for review around, yes, how it is that we transmute it and work through it, as we talked about earlier, but also how it is that we learn from it. You know, within the vibe check, you're at this family party and there's elements of the uncomfortable conversations that make you filled with doubt. You know, you see other people in their happy marriages and you're like, should I have tried to work harder? Should I have tried to fight for it more? Should I have tried to work harder at it? There's parts of it around fear of the future that you're like, oh, did I make a mistake? And it's helpful to remember the pain. Sometimes when we have distance from something, we forget how bad it was or how hard it was. Or if we have distance from other people's lives, we don't know the inner workings of everybody at this family party. We don't know the inner workings of their marriage. We don't know the inner workings of them raising their children, that individual traveling the world, this individual killing it in career. We don't know the inner workings, the ins and outs. Everything looks more glamorous from afar. And same goes sometimes with our lives that, of course, we know intimately about, but when it's been time, sometimes we idealize and romanticize the past of where we've been. And if we're scared of what's ahead, we can sometimes romanticize the past. Wonder if we made a mistake and if we should go back to it. And it wasn't that bad, was it? And it's helpful to remember the pain, not to live in it, but to remember that it existed. Something that was helpful for me personally, and I'm just going to share this just in case this is helpful for anyone else, is having certain memories, photos, certain things that remind you of the most painful part of that experience that caused you to walk away. Or if somebody walked away from you, remembering the most painful moment that they abandoned you to sit within. Remembering that moment. And anytime you feel tempted to let them back in, anytime you feel tempted to go back to them or to give it another go, it's remembering that rock bottom moment, not to, wound yourself further, but to remind yourself that's where you were. And to make the decision for self-preservation to do whatever possible to not get back to that place again. For me, it's a photo. And I took it very intentionally as a promise to myself, like, please, Haley, never get back here. Never get back here. This feels horrible. Because with time, we heal, which is a beautiful thing. Like we were talking about with Venus Chiron, where we could be bruised, but we are healing. We are getting better each and every day. It's a beautiful thing, the process of healing. But sometimes with that, when we get to a certain space, we forget the lowest part of that. Sometimes our brain blocks it out because it doesn't want to remember that. It doesn't want to look at that. And again, we're looking at all of the things. It's solstice, major contrast today, all around the globe. So I'm not saying you have to go into the reservoir of the most traumatic and hurtful things that ever happened to you. I'm just saying if there is an energy around returning back to somewhere that you've been before, remembering how that hurt. That true rock bottom moment that I took that photo, that was after I had already gone back to it. I had a mini rock bottom moment, went away, healed, felt like, oh, I'm stronger now. And now I can approach the dynamic as a little bit more of a healed version of myself. So it won't hurt as much. Nope, hurt me 10 times worse going back. And I had to take that photo around, I don't know if I'm going to survive. If it gets 10 times worse than this, like genuinely, I'm not going to make it out of this. So like for my own self-preservation, I need to take this photo to just remember this pain, to stay away, to learn from this pain. Let's do anything we can to not be here again around this same exact situation. And there's elements for my story where I kept going back to it because it was familiar, both within that dynamic as well as it was a familiar brand of pain. It was a familiar wound. Jupiter in Cancer, squaring Chiron in Aries reminds me a lot of trauma bonds, where it's like a familiar sort of pain that you're used to, where it hurts, but it feels familiar. And at some point, you have to choose the unfamiliar adventure and the moments of feeling lost and the moments of carving your own path away from the familiar pain, where you know what to expect there, which yes, sometimes can be comforting, that familiarity, but not if it's a comfort zone that's actually just a torture zone, because it's just more pain and more suffering and despair. An unfamiliar adventure is better than a familiar pain. And Jupiter square Chiron could be just feeling the tension of that around wanting to expand, wanting to grow, but feeling the pain of the past even. There could be an energy around belief systems. There's an element this week around, I don't know what I believe in. I kind of lightly peppered that into the vibe check around, other people's, maybe their religious views on our decision kind of coming into our experience. There could be elements around, what do I believe in? Or maybe my connection with the universe is not the same, or I don't feel as supported. I don't feel as held by the universe. That was a huge part of my Saturn in Pisces story. You know, I'm a natal Saturn Pisces, so I'm wrapping up my Saturn return, which, yay, congratulations to all of my fellow Saturn and Pisces for wrapping this up. But a major theme that I felt throughout the course of this was this energy around feeling abandoned by God. Like with Saturn and Pisces, like genuinely feeling abandoned spiritually. And there just could be elements of that this week, just with Jupiter squaring Chiron and the Sagittarius placements receiving squares to Saturn. And I don't know what I believe in. I don't know if I have hope. I don't know if I have faith. I don't know if I believe that things are going to get better. I've experienced so much pain. Every time I look forward to something, I just experience more pain and more disappointment and more despair. There just could be an element of that. But it's knowing that here in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the longest night of the year. It's the darkest night of the year. And tomorrow, the sun goes down a minute later, and then the next, another minute, and then the next day, another minute later, and then another minute later, and there becomes more and more light. And I believe life is like that as well, where sometimes we go through nights that feel like they're going to last forever and a lot of darkness. And it's knowing that things do get better. They do improve. And I just want to share what I learned through Saturn and Pisces, because on the other side of the Saturn return, not that it's fully done yet, but I will say, being this far into my Saturn return, I've never felt closer to the universe. I've never felt closer to my creator, closer to God. And there were a lot of times that I felt very abandoned and honestly, sometimes even betrayed by God. But I look back at those moments and I really see how I was divinely guided and supported at every step, how that experience led me down some really painful corridors. But I honestly, even despite all of the pain, I wouldn't undo it because of all that I learned from it, like with Jupiter square Chiron. And yes, the wisdom of what I learned from the actual situation, but also the adventures that it sent me on. In a jarring way, this is a square to Jupiter, but it sent me on so many different adventures because I needed wisdom. I needed a bigger picture in order to understand this pain. I needed different modalities in order to nurture myself and soothe myself through this pain. And I ended up deepening my connection to my own intuition because of this pain that I navigated. So I just want to say, if you relate to any shade of what I've shared today, but in this whole episode altogether, I just want to let you know that I'm sending you so much love. And please know, if you ever see yourself represented by the sky above you, it's a recognition that all things pass, all things change. The sun will rise, a new beginning will come. And you may find that even the spikiest and hardest situations, you may find in the future that there was some unlikely lesson that you learned from it, or wisdom that you were able to chisel from it, or path that it sent you on. It's not saying we have to be love and light and gratitude around the really painful experiences of our life, because sometimes it's just cruel. You don't need to rush to find the silver lining. And sometimes we don't find the silver lining within the event itself, but what we transmuted it into, what we alchemized it into, what we allowed it to mean for our world and our truth and our discovery. I also want to highlight that the sun enters Capricorn. I want to wish a very happy birthday to all of my wonderful Capricorns out there. Capricorn, we adore you for perpetually setting the bar, for lovingly giving us reality checks, the tough love that we really need every so often. We adore you for your humor. I find Capricorns are very funny, as well as their desire to really live this experience well and make the full use of all of their resources and all of their talents within this experience. I adore you. I hope that you enjoy your season. I want to highlight that all of us during Capricorn season, if during Sagittarius season we wanted to explore wide, Capricorn, we want to ascend tall. There just could be an emphasis upon our goals, upon our ambition. And again, it's not always necessarily business and being the CEO. It's wanting to do the best and be the best that we can be, wanting to be at the end of our life and say to God or our creator, I have nothing left. Like, I used all that you gave me, all of the talents, all of the abilities. I used it all. Capricorn energy is really about wanting to ground into the now in order to make that a reality, because we're in earth sign season now. We're down to earth, we're grounded, we're realistic, which, yes, Capricorn rules Saturn. Sometimes reality can feel suffocating. It can feel hard, but the energy of Capricorn is working with reality. I want to highlight the moon is also in Capricorn all day long as well. It will activate that Jupiter Chiron square that exacted early this morning in the evening time. I want to note that Jupiter square Chiron exacts today, but we feel it as it builds. We feel it as it separates. So it's by no means just limited to today, but the Capricorn moon does set it off even more so. So there also could be an energy around feeling certain pain or having certain triggers or certain flashbacks, and the Capricorn moon could want to either compartmentalize it around, I don't want to feel that, let's put that emotion into a box that we don't open, or even work it away in order to avoid it in some regard. And the Capricorn moon will sextile Saturn in Pisces at 11:27 p.m., which is a grounding end to the weekend around allowing yourself to connect to your physical body, to make certain plans or preparations for the week to come. So my loves, that is our week, our special Magic Monday midnight edition. And by midnight, I mean that it's actually 2:56 a.m. now. Wrapping up Magic Monday. Yeah, I'm not proud of this. I'm not going to make it a habit, but a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do when we've got these 12 days of cosmos. And genuinely, I did have energy to do this. I'm not burning out this month. It's just important to me to show up for all of my commitments. We are in Capricorn season, after all. Your Magic Monday mantra of the week to support you in navigating through is, I define myself. We can sometimes define ourselves by our physical reality at this particular moment. I am this job that I'm working that I do not like. I am this relationship that I feel very suffocated within. I am this element of my life that I am not pleased with. And we can define ourselves via these outer metrics, via these outer milestones, via these outer achievements, via these outer ego trappings. And none of them are really an accurate definition of who it is that you are. And oftentimes it causes you to limit your own understanding of the expansive nature of your soul and who you are. And sometimes we can allow lovers from the past or heartache from the past, just with Venus squaring Saturn, trine Chiron, to define us as well, around they didn't want me, so I'm not wantable. They didn't find me beautiful, so I'm not beautiful, allowing yourself to be outsourcing your definition to these individuals. And it's knowing that those people from your past, your job, your bank account, none of that ultimately defines you. You define you. And it's more than your name. It's more than your birthday. It's more than your chart. It's more than your job. It's more than your career. It's more than your relationship. It's your potential. It's your gifts. It's your chart. It's your truth. It's your sides to yourself that you haven't even met yet because you haven't gone on the necessary adventures to connect to those sides of yourself. You contain multitudes. So the ask this week is to not define yourself in very static, one-dimensional ways, because you are multi-dimensional, my friend. And it's also just checking yourself lovingly if you find yourself feeling less than in any sort of way, around feeling like you're defined as a loser because society tells you that you need to be spending all of this money this particular season, or defining yourself as being lame because you're the only person at your family party who isn't in a marriage. Like, who says those are the things that define you? You define you. Society doesn't define you. The people from your past don't define you. Aunt Marcia doesn't define you. You define you. So my loves, that is our week. And so if you made it to the end of Magic Monday, go ahead and let me know by commenting below the honey emoji or using the word honey in a sentence as a shout out to my peppermint tea with honey that has just been delicious for my throat and for this middle of the night Magic Monday broadcast. I am so grateful that you are here. I'm so looking forward to seeing you again next week, same time, same place. But until then, drink lots of water or peppermint tea and stay magical.